The longer the bomb is around without anything happening, the better the job that people do in psychologically denying its existence. It has become as abstract as the fact that we are all going to die someday, which we usually do an excellent job of denying. Stanley Kubrick. Ask your parents or grandparents what they remember of the Cold War, and they will inevitably mention the widespread fear of nuclear weapons. During the Cuban Missile Program, my grandmother told me her neighbor fainted from panic in her sitting room as they watched the news. The bomb haunted not just people's fears, but also their art. The 1950s, the 1970s were dominated by apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic films such as Dr. Strangelove, Planet of the Apes, and On the Beach. Likewise, its presence was felt in books, songs, and plays. Many people thought a nuclear war was inevitable, and planning for the future pointless. Crises in Berlin, Cuba, Korea, and other flashpoints of the Cold War kept this fear topical and all-encompassing. To some, the end of history was approaching. But Earth has managed to avoid the use of nuclear weapons since 1945, when they were used on the now infamous cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. All in all, surviving the past 80 years without a repeat is an impressive achievement. But the problem with going so long without them being used is that people begin to relax. The past 30 years has seen an era of books and films that ignore the bomb altogether, with the major exception of Oppenheimer in 2023. In the science fiction film Don't Look Up, the world ends due to a meteor, a ham-fisted metaphor for climate change. In Interstellar, the world begins to die due to pollution. Both films approach the end of the world as being triggered by humans, but without a trigger. The bomb has lost its grip on our cultural consciousness. Somewhere, at some point, people stop worrying about nukes ending the world if it doesn't happen. But the nukes haven't disappeared, and there are even more states with nuclear capabilities now than in the 1950s and 1960s. Currently, there are 9 nuclear-armed nations: the United States, Russia, Britain, France, Israel, China, North Korea, India, and Pakistan. However, the total number of bombs worldwide has fallen from 60,000 to 13,000. Still, the ability to obliterate the Earth remains. For example, the warheads on just one US nuclear submarine have 7 times the explosive power of all the bombs dropped worldwide during World War II. The silver lining in this is that Russia and the United States combined make up over 90% of nukes worldwide, meaning their nuclear capacity is an outlier. For the last 30 years since the end of the Cold War, nuclear proliferation has been a sideline topic. The unipolar moment following the fall of the Soviet Union meant geopolitical tensions between nuclear powers were relatively low. The exception to this rule is India and Pakistan, who routinely enter border conflicts with each other. North Korea also acquired nuclear weapons during this period, adding to East Asian political tensions. But it's true that, largely speaking, nuclear weapons took up less space in the public's imagination globally. Culturally, this is even more noticeable, with the bomb being less felt in the world's films and literature. Fortunately or unfortunately, this era may be coming to an end. With the shift towards a multipolar world only accelerating, nuclear proliferation is once again a topic of discussion. There are many factors into why this is occurring, but today I'm going to focus on just 2. Firstly, we have the United States. A significant portion of the world's population lives under America's nuclear umbrella. Through NATO, the United States stations nukes both in Europe and in Turkey. This provides its members with a nuclear deterrence and has done for nearly 80 years. But this is now changing. With the shunning of its European allies, the status quo has been undermined by Washington. Europe is increasingly viewing the US as an unreliable ally. This is because they are. Trump's increasing isolationism, at least in Europe, his shunning of multilateralism, and his shaky support for Ukraine has made America see it unreliable. This is likewise for America's Asian allies, who also rely on the nuclear umbrella, Japan and Korea. Soon we could see some states move towards producing their own weapons, with South Korea and Japan certainly being capable of doing so. Having 3 nuclear powers in their neighborhood, North Korea, China, and Russia, would make this seem appealing should relations sour with Washington. In Europe, a likely candidate for beginning a nuclear program is Poland, who have signaled they are considering it. Jammed between a retreating US and an expanding Russia, this would be tempting for their country's hawks. The second factor is the rise of third powers. With the shift to a multipolar world following America's unipolar moment, regional powers may want to flex their strength by obtaining a nuclear deterrent. Candidate countries include Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Turkey. Turkey may already have some of the capabilities necessary to do so, due to their arms industry, which includes top-of-the-line drones. The country is also clear in its interest in dominating much of the MENA region, reflected in its involvement in Somalia, Libya, and the Caucasus. Not to mention its effective annexation of northern Syria and parts of Iraq. Saudi Arabia and Iran are likewise locked in a regional rivalry, and Iran especially may be more interested in obtaining a nuclear deterrent due to its recent conflict with the United States and Israel. But despite everything I've just mentioned, building nukes is still deeply taboo. Odds are most countries talked about in this video will not do so. At times, for practical reasons like cost and feasibility. Other times, due to the fear of becoming a pariah state like North Korea. There is also the obvious fact that building nukes yourself may push your neighbors to do likewise, out of fear of you. But I do think it's safe to say that the bomb will no longer be on hiatus for the world. The last 30 years of its cultural absence will end. The 21st century is shaping up to have a larger space for the nuclear topic to be discussed and feared. And perhaps there is a silver lining to this. As Stanley Kubrick pointed out, the longer the bomb is around without anything happening, the better the job that people do in psychologically denying its existence. Maybe it's time to worry again. It may spur more action against nuclear proliferation, which I certainly would like to see. That's all for today, guys, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you next time.